Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome back for another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I trust that everyone has gotten a very good dose of knowledge with regard to some of our prior features, to include the Stephen Holiday situation. And we're going to have certainly more to report on that in an upcoming episode. And obviously the Billy Broussard situation that we will also have more to report on. But we've done two features recently on both of those, and we believe they were quite informative. And let me just take one moment on, if you will, a point of personal privilege. As many of you are aware, because many who view this are Facebook friends of mine, my mother took a very bad fall on Thursday of this past week, which would be the 21st, is the 21st of February, and she broke her left arm. So I spent that day in the emergency room, and I'm very happy to report that it looks like we're going to be meeting with an orthopedic surgeon tomorrow, that she may be able to get by with just a sling for 6 to 8 weeks. At least that's what we're hoping for. That was an indication that at the emergency room, in consultation with the orthopedic surgeon, they felt like would work. But I want to take this special moment to thank the many women of the Ascension Parish Republican Women's Organization who rushed to my mother as they saw this unfortunate fall. And I could start naming names, and I will name Liz Hebert, but I don't mean to leave anyone out, and Joyce LaCour, who came and comforted me, because this was when the person you've spent your entire life with experiences something like that. It's nerve-wracking, and I'm so fortunate that it appears that it won't be any worse than it is. But my mother will turn 88 years old next month, and so anytime something like that happens to a young lady of any age, obviously it's going to affect those who are near and dear to them, and certainly that affected me. And I want to thank these fine women of the Ascension Parish Republicans organization who were not only there to help get my mom up, but also to comfort me as we awaited the ambulance. So I just again want to thank you so much. My mom, I'm happy to say, has been up and walking all 3 of the days since then. We walk in Walden most every evening. Now, in the 2 previous days, we walked over in the Mall of Louisiana, but today she told me she wanted to return to walking in Walden. Hope that background noise won't bother you. But at any rate, we returned to walking in Walden, and then the next thing I know is she says, well, when are you going to do another Sound Off Louisiana feature? So here I am. And I'm going to keep this fairly short. We did a piece some time back with regard to the election taking place for, I believe it's the 5th district, I may have that wrong, to the state, the Bar Association, Board of Governors. Don't hold me to that 5th district. That's just what's coming to my head. I don't have any notes for any of this. So, at any rate, it was a race that had come down to a runoff between Kelly Rabalais and Jack Whitehead. And as most of you know, I conveyed my sentiments with regard to that situation in a previous video, and we told you we'd be bringing you the results. Those results are in, and what we're going to do is we're going to devote an entire web page, both that give you the results as well as an entire plethora of litigation that the St. Tammany Parish Council has been involved with, and the massive legal fees that have been incurred in that. Now, first of all, let me just say this. I'll say congratulations to Miss Rabalais. She did win the election. I expressed concern that she may in the previous feature, and she in fact has won. That vote tally was 576 to 538. So it was not exactly a landslide, but she did win. So congratulations to Miss Rabalais. We live in a democratic society, and certainly we respect the outcome of elections, and she won this election. Now, having said that, the results of the election don't really surprise me, because I will be blunt with you. I view this as another indication that ethics within the legal profession is sorely lacking, okay? I don't know any other way to say it. And I'm just going to say this, there was a person named Eve who made comments on the previous video that we did on this material. Eve may be Miss Rabalais. I could care less. If it is, fine. If it's not, fine. But at any rate, there seemed to have been, you know, this deal about, well, what you've said has been proven demonstrably false, and so are you going to issue a retraction? Well, let me tell you something. There will be no retraction, okay? I'm just going to say this, because I feel certain Miss Rabalais will probably watch this. You know, I'm going to think of the... Let me say this. You may remember in the 1988 presidential debate, there was a moment where Lloyd, I can't think of his last name right now. You see, when it's when you see when it's a Democrat, I have more trouble recalling the name. Benson, I'm sorry, it came to me. Get older, you have these little momentary lapses. And in a debate, he looked over at Dan Quayle and he said, "You're no Jack Kennedy." Well, I'm just going to say this, Miss Rabalais, you're no Larry Bankston, okay? Nor should you really aspire to be. But, you know, the little subtle, whoever Eve is, the little subtle inferences that, well, you may have defamed character. Let me tell you something. What are in those documents? And forget for a moment how the possession of the documents came about, okay? You know, that's a sideshow, but the reality is that there's overwhelming evidence that the documents were doctored so that they would not conform to a public records request, okay? Emails that basically are cheerleading employees for having avoided the public records request. And that meets my definition of someone who's ethically challenged, okay? Now, I realize it may, the whole argument of, well, was she disciplined by the state board? I mean, whether by the state bar or Office of Disciplinary Account, that goes to my whole point, okay? I could probably do, I don't even know how many episodes of people that I know who have filed complaints with the Office of Disciplinary Counsel, and you're looking at one of them. In fact, I will give you a link for their complaint that I filed against Mr. Bankston, because Mr. Bankston is, I'm not going to go into all the detail, but he chooses to go in and, now we're talking about a convicted felon, okay? Like I said, Ms. Rabalais, you're no Larry Bankston, who instead of dealing with the payroll fraud that was going on in the Auctioneers Licensing Board, opts to prosecute me, step into the prosecutorial role and prosecute me, okay? We'll give you the link to one of the dissents that Larry Bankston had no business getting his law license back, to which I would concur. You know, and as far as him having been reformed or seen the light, you forget that. It ain't happened, okay? And it probably never will. So I think that just further reinforces my point that in reality, ethics and attorneys really, those two words don't have much business being in the same sentence, okay? And I do think the results of this further reinforce that. I do think it's a bad development. I'm just going to be blunt about it. I don't know why there would be a belief that I don't have the right to voice those sentiments. You know, and let me just say this. I used to be a member of the Auctioneers Licensing Board. You become a public figure when you put your name in the hat for these type things, okay? So, Ms. Rabalais, I would suggest that, you know, if that is you or some friend of yours in the name of Eve, if you really believe that there needs to be no retraction here, I would say you need to grow a little bit thicker skin, okay? And because I can tell you, I probably played it softer than really should have been, okay? But you may also, some of the viewers may wonder why I get so worked up about this whole business about a denial of public records, and that's basically what it amounted to. And I mean, that is one thing. I guess the concerned citizens of St. Tammany Parish knew how to push my buttons. They probably looked over the numerous past posts that I've had and may have even gone into the auctioneer, because I'm going to give the link. And you'll see 7 lawsuits I filed. I make no apologies for filing any of them, okay? I filed them all pro se, and every single one of them has to do with either alleged violations of the open meetings law, alleged denials of public records. So we're talking about a subject matter that is near and dear to me, okay? And I'm consistent with it. This whole issue about Jeff Landry and the lady from I don't know, Missouri, wherever the case, You know, I know that Ruth Wisher, whom I have a lot of respect for, but her initial quote in the paper was, well, hopefully this is not a political witch hunt. Well, of course it's a political witch hunt, okay? That's a given. It doesn't matter. You know, they are public records. I make the analogy in something like that as saying that if you got two football teams, a big rivalry, and they're going to play next week, and they say, look, we want your film. You know, you exchange films so that you know, you can get an idea how to best defend against you. It would be like one football team. Well, I hope they're not going to use a video of our past games as a to try and beat us. Well, of course they are. Okay, but it's part of the game. Okay, it's the rules of the game. It's the way it is. And I realize that the young lady that was making the request for public records, I mean, I realize that her political ideology is vastly different from some of the members of that council. I understand that. Just like my political philosophy is vastly different than some that I have sought public records on, Mr. Bankston being one of them, okay? But this business of blocking public records really gets under my dander. I mean, it gets my dander up. I just don't even know how any further to say it. So I know this video hasn't been all that long. It wasn't intended to be. We're going to give you the results of the election. Again, I find them disheartening. I do find them as more reinforcement that the legal profession is lacking common ethics, okay? At least it wasn't a landslide, but nevertheless, I don't think this is a good election outcome. However, having said that, as I said at the outset, we certainly extend congratulations to Miss Rabalais because she won this election, okay? It was only a 38-vote margin. We're going to give you the results, and the results are the results. But I think that if you look at the links of the past lawsuits that I filed against the LALB, and we're going to give you that link, we'll give you the link for the dissent with regard to Mr. Bankston in terms of not having his law license. And I'll say one other thing, and I'll wrap it up. As I said, Miss Rabalais, you're no Larry Bankston, okay? And, you know, if there's a little subtle hint that this might be defamatory, you know, okay, go ahead, you know. I've gone up against Larry Bankston, okay? The man filed a writ of attachment against me, okay? And we're going to drop that video right in below here, and we're going to give you some documentation for that, okay? And I was pro se, all right? I went in there and defended this thing pro se, and I used a 3-page opposition memorandum to do so, okay? And I won, all right? So, you know, and in that video, you're going to see what was an attempt to be an intimidation tactic. They held a meeting of the Auctioneer Licensing Board in the main conference room at the Attorney General's office. I was under the old days of Buddy Caldwell. I'm on record as having said Buddy Caldwell is the most corrupt person I have ever met in my entire life, bar none. Okay, but if you look at that video, I think you'd have to agree they didn't do a real great job of intimidating me, all right? So if you think just some sly little comment that, well, since this has been proven demonstratively false, which it has not, okay, you know, we've had all of the, and we're going to give you these filings, all right? They're too numerous to go into, and I think that speaks volumes to the staggering amount of legal cost that has been incurred by citizens of St. Tammany Parish, no matter what, whether you're in those concerned citizens group or not. It ought to be an outright embarrassment, and it ought to be something that it would concern every citizen. Because I'm going to tell you what, you start talking about $1 million in legal fees, especially when you have the parish president very adamant of who should be able to, notwithstanding a vote of the people, of who should be that legal counsel, $1 million can treat a heck of a lot of sewer. Okay, given that that's kind of how the genesis of all this began, you know, was raw sewage flowing across property. You can treat one more whale of a lot of sewer for $1 million, all right? So I said we would follow up with the election. I have now given you the follow-up, but I think you would agree what I have just given is probably 180 degrees apart from any retraction. So I hope everyone has an enjoyable Mardi Gras as it is up and coming. You know, they do so many celebrations of Mardi Gras, it gets very difficult to know when the real Mardi Gras is. but I believe it's a little over a week away. It's not something I'm real big into, but I think that's the case, that it's about a week from Tuesday, I believe. So I hope everyone who does enjoy Mardi Gras festivities enjoys them, and I hope many of you do like I've been doing for weeks, and will enjoy boiled crawfish, whether you're Catholic or not, on every Friday and any other day that you may opt to enjoy them during Lent period. Because if you haven't noticed, there's one thing that really excites me a lot, and that is boiled crawfish, and the price is finally starting to drop a little bit, and I've had them 3 times this week. In fact, I'll be having some again tonight, because I am a boiled crawfish addict. So I want to thank one last time all of the women at the Republican Women's Organization for your tremendous support this past Thursday. I hope everyone's enjoyed this sound off feature. We're going to have more coming up for you this upcoming week, but let me get on in and process this one so I can get it to my mom and she won't have to ask, when are you going to do another sound off feature? Thank you once again. We look forward to bringing you another Sound Off Louisiana presentation real soon. Thank you once again.